Good morning. Welcome to the next installment of the Typhone Partner Spotlight webinar series. Today we're excited to welcome Joni from Ripcord. We'll give everyone another moment to join and we'll begin in about 2 minutes.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees.
Welcome again to the next installment of the Typhone Partner Spotlight webinar series. Today we're excited to welcome Joni from Ripcord. Before we turn things over, just a quick note. GoToWebinar puts everyone on mute. So if you are unable to mute yourself, that's normal. Please feel free to use the question section on the right-hand side to ask any questions and we'll respond to those at the end. Joni, with that, thank you so much for joining and take it away.
I'm slightly embarrassed to say that I can't seem to share my desktop. I can start the introduction. I guess, Corinne, if you want to share the presentation, that would be great. My security rights have now locked down on sharing things through webinar. And so this has just happened, so sorry about that. Corinne, are you around to share some of the slides?
Yeah, I can try. Let me pull the slides up.
Okay. So sorry about that. We just had a security update and on my laptop, as you know, law of averages, and this is kind of what happens. It just locked down GoToWebinar. So as I'm connected, it requires me to shut down the webinar to allow the changes. So I'll just go, I'll tell you a little bit about me while Corinne is making the changes. My name is Joni Wu. I'm the Senior Director of Customer Delivery for Ripcord. There's been a last minute change in resources for the panelists simply because, you know, our Chief Digital Officer, Wasim Khan, had some personal issues you know, with a death in the family. So there was a pivot in the change in the presenters. So just wanted to kind of outline that a little bit. So for me, you know, as the focus for customer delivery, my team focuses on the customer interactions, right? From pre-sales stage of architecture, solutioning, solution consulting, and defining and working with clients to define the solution to the final stages, which is more on the implementation, the delivery, any ongoing support and continuous improvements, right? So those are all areas that my team spotlights on. So while I'm presenting the deck that Wasim had presented, you're also going to get a little bit of a delivery light on what this is, right? So again, you know, I'm not Wasim. But this deck was put together by Wasim, in terms of highlighting some of the market trends and whatnot. Okay, if you want to go to the next slide. So you're going to get a little bit of a delivery spin on how this is all going to, how Ripcord impacts a lot of our customers. All right, and today's agenda is, 3 planks, right? So generally, the key recent market trends, right? We've all going through, a change that we're not, that we didn't plan for, right? And I think that is, in general, the landscape that we deal with, especially with, a service organization that is supporting a lot of external clients, right? There are all market trends and external barriers that we have to overcome, and to put into our day-to-day tasks. We're going to talk a little bit about Ripcord and the new ways we help, as well as solutions that we have for the different credit unions. And the next slide. Thanks, Corinne.
Can you see the slide, Joni?
Yeah, they're good. So again, the trends for today, right? So new era of working in 2020, right? This is definitely surreal times. There are changes. Organizations are adapting and responding to the public health situation, that has arisen with COVID-19. Again, nothing that we had planned on from last year, right? Credit unions are now focused on serving their members, right, during these unprecedented times. Right, we hear stories about setting up skip a pay for consumer loans, right? Credit card, modified mortgages, ramped up emergency relief loans, right? So just a lot of changes that need to be handled quickly. And you have to do this during things that you were managing from before, right? Digital transformation that you were looking for before, right? Greater impact on office workers, business continuity. Now we have to add in remote workers and what things need to happen there, right? Process shifts, right? As we go from, a lot more brick and mortar to more online, right? So, what are the investments that we need to focus on? Documentation, guidelines, security guidelines, audit control. How do we search everything with this mixed mode hybrid solution that we're looking at, right? As we're going through transition, what is it that we're looking at? And so that's kind of all the stuff that we're looking at. And Forrester data, suggests that only 21% of organizations, that have actually completed their digital transformation, whatever that might be, right? And so the other thing is the trends for the digital transformation, right? So we're all, obviously this is all driven by business initiatives, needs, environmental factors. Surveys shows that around 92% of organizations are undertaking some sort of digital transformation, right? So we have a list of that, all along the sides. I guess the top of mind is obviously modernizing the legacy systems, right? So these are your line of business applications that you need to focus on, right? The data, the records management piece of it is tied to your legacy system. But, the focus is on migrating stuff to a little bit more automation, updating legacy, and that doesn't really change, right? That is kind of an ongoing journey with the new technology, options that are out there right now. And everybody has stated that 85% of those initiatives are now slowed down, right? We're all, accommodating the changes that we're looking at. And when you look at a lot of these initiatives, they are all siloed, right? You have an initiative, there is a cascading effect. There's some waterfall effects. One change transitions to another, but most of them are not integrated, right? And so we'll focus a little bit on that. For Ripcord, we're offering a integrated solution, and I'll tell you a little bit of what that means. But the idea is there are different impacts, and organizations need to manage that impact itself, right? So if I'm doing a legacy system change, what is my user experience, right? What is my view into my customers? How does that handle with my integrations, my sales productivity? What is that impact? And organizations need to kind of track that themselves and how to grow some of that. Okay, and then the next slide. And then again, another trend, right? Data of digital content, right? The paperless world is not going away, and there are archives, right? There are legacies, there are retention, records management policies that need to be upheld, right? And so while we have, the traditional paper records, and a lot of the documentation from the past, we are now also looking at a lot of digital data. And a lot of times we are looking at a hybrid mode, right, where we have both paper records and we also have digital records, right? And again, a lot of it is what is the classification that we need to look at to see what is useful data to keep, right? So if we look at that, how do we make the data make sense, right? Everything is growing by, 4 to 6 times within the next 2 years, right? And the bottom line is there's a lot of data. How do we ensure that we keep it useful, right? What is it we need to keep and how do we keep that, right? Is that hoarding mentality that everybody wants to keep everything, which, may have worked, but at the rate that we're growing, how do we ensure that we put the proper classification plans, the proper retention rates, on the data that we need to keep, and also extract the content and unleash the data that we actually want to keep, right? So there's always that definition that we need to kind of focus on. And next slide. Corinne, can you move to the next slide?
Oh, yes, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, Mary, thank you.
So why does this matter and why should you care, right? And again, we're always looking at making things better, right? How do we leverage the technology that's out there? How to make things better? How do we provide a better experience, right? And also, when you look at, the line of business that we're looking at, what is that experience need to look like? We're focusing on the customers, the customer experience, and you might want to monitor a little bit on your satisfaction from your end users, and what that needs to look like, right? And I think a lot of it is allow, technologies to help you unleash your data so that you can focus on that, right? Rather than driving resources and driving, technology yourself to be able to do that, right? There's only so much time, energy, and money and resources that we're looking at. It's one of those things is how do we leverage, the technology to unleash that data? And so Ripcord is the world's leading robotics digitization company, right? We combine both hardware and software robotics. We leverage AI, we leverage machine learning, and we provide an integrated SaaS offering, right? Where we allow smart robotics digitization, smart content management, layered with AI and analytics, and that will help you with unleashing the data that is stored and captured in a lot of your documentation. Next slide. I think the next slide is a video.
Joni, we may need you to talk us through this. The audio, I don't think is coming through too well.
It's this pandemic time. So basically, a lot of this is the integrated solution, right? So we're looking at unlocking the data that is from your paper content. What you just saw there is the robotic work cells, right? The idea of leveraging a robot to scan a lot of the documents allows you to have a higher level of data, accuracy, And with the clean data, we're now looking at the extraction process, right? So how do we unleash the data that's on there, right? A scanned document is simply just that, right? A digital PDF is simply that, right? But that's not what we're looking at, right? What we're looking at is the data that is actually captured directly on the documentation, right? That's what we care about. And so allowing our digitization process, our enrichment services, our extraction service, we unlock a lot of that data. And then we also allow you to push that data downstream, right? How do we push it to different systems? How do we create analytics out of that? So that's kind of the idea of that video. And we can send you a link. This is just a YouTube video that we can share. But basically, if you look at this, our offering, the three key steps that we look at is the first one there, right? That's our smart robotics digitization, right? It is the only one in the world. Well, not only one, we have a fleet of them. And so basically what that means is we have robots that automatically take the documentation. They take the staples out. They take all of that. And it runs through our work cells, and they scan at 520 DPI. And again, why do you care is because, try reading some of the data from the fax machines, right? Like it's barely legible. And how do you ensure that you unlock that data, right? The same thing with, the concept of garbage in, garbage out, right? So we ensure that we have, computer vision. It does automatic adjustments. It changes the lighting. So all those factors that get into a really good scan is computerized, right? So rather than having a scanned image, PDFs that, with the traditional platens where you might have a streak, you might create noise as part of the scan process. We've eliminated all that, right? So we have, we know that there's some older documentation. We can't add more noise. So a lot of our robots will do that. It also ensures that we have a much faster speed, right? We can go through a lot more volume to be able to capture that data. So that's our first phase. And then we have our enrichment phase, which is the secondary step, is that, unlocking that data, right? Applying machine learning models to be able to pull some of that data, right? Everything that is in a paper file is simply that, right? How do you find a loan document versus an agreement versus a checklist, right? So the loan origination has, a lot of different steps, a lot of different types of documents. How do you ensure you grab all of that? And so when we look at a lot of this, it is how do we grab that? And then how do we unleash that and build the analytics, right? Now that we've unlocked the data, what can we do with it? And so we will help you throughout those stages. So, basically, your middle piece of extraction enrichment to your final piece, which is the business process enablement, right? Turning the data into knowledgeable, integrated and to automate some of your processes that we're looking at. Okay. So yeah, some of the video sums it up. We grab a lot of the data and reuse it, right? And again, we will work with you to kind of encounter what those models need to look like, right? It is not a lot. We definitely leverage a lot of, AI to be able to do this, right? So a lot of the tribal knowledge, and that's where some of the continuous improvement comes into play. We unlock that data and we will continuously unlock that. And so when you look at the trends in the financial services, the planks that you're focusing on is improved customer experience, right? Reduced time, faster decision making, and strong compliance, right? Those are all things that you need to kind of focus on. What we can help with is the better leverage of automation tools, right? How do we unlock that data? How do we give you contextual data awareness, right? How do we unlock all of that knowledge in the years of the documentation, any trends that you might want to have, any predictive trends that we're looking at from the data from both the paper as well as the digital to be put together and to create a new analytics view, right? So, rather than having a bunch of loan documentation or documentations that are stored in archives, how do we unlock that to be able to bring that on? Okay, next step. Right.
Yeah, I moved it. I'm not sure it's reached you yet.
All right.
Yeah.
So again, how we're helping credit unions, right? So, from the different stages that we're looking at, right? Here are the different services, and the workforce and how we impact them, right? But a lot of it has to do with how do we enable the data for you to easily search, right? How do we digitize a lot of the content? How do we enable, the workflows, right? How do you have a lot of the data at your fingertips, right? And any AI rules to help to make those decisions faster, right? So those are all areas that we would be looking at, throughout, the services that are based for your services, and how Ripcord can help. And next slide. Yeah, and the next slide, you'll see a little bit of our workflows and how we would do this, right? So I can explain a little bit as we're waiting for the slides to catch up. A lot of times there's a lot of data in the boxes of data, whether they be, day forward, when we look at this, you can see the acquisition of the content. And traditional scanners, you lose a lot of what the physical structure gives you, right? So what we call is our digital twin, right? Because we're leveraging robots and it's robot assisted scanning, we are capturing everything at the various stages, right? We know whether they were in a folder. We know that there are staples. We know that if you put it in as a binder clip. And why is that important? Well, they were put that way for a reason, right? And traditional scan bureaus will all, remove a lot of that information. We deem that information really critical, right? Why? That's where the contextual data is, right? What is considered a package, right? What should be together? What should be separated, right? Why were they separated? And so we have that, the ability to create that digital twin, right? The table of contents to replicate your physical structure. And then what we take with that is, because we know all the documentation, we have all the high quality images, we then run them through our image classifier. What that does is it allows us to classify what those documents are, right? What type of documents they are, whether it's, obviously the easy ones, right? The personal information data, right? Which is their driver's license, any personal, W-4s or anything like that. Those are easily identified, but it also allows us to segment out, the other communications that are there, so that you can then provide some analytics and retention on the different types of documentation we're looking at. The next stage, again, not everything might meet this, but some might, right? In terms of the data extraction, right? How useful is the field level information, right? So, obviously everything is a text searchable PDF. So you can search within the context of all of the entire document. But really, what is useful, right? In the past, a lot of the documents are form-based, right? So if you just leverage a context search, you're going to run into a lot of data, right? And a lot of it is mixed in with the other stuff. And so the idea of listing the field level attributes, right? What are they useful, right? How do we capture the information that you need to be able to be useful? And then what we've also found with our experience is listing the field level is also problematic from documents that are, potentially handwritten, and up to 10 years ago, most of it are, right? And even to this day and age, a lot of the documentation, a lot of the data is handwritten. So we've also applied machine learning and computer vision, right? So, we're just not looking at the character level. Our machine learning basically looks at it like an AI looks at it like a human would, right? You would see the word in context. And so, and based on the words surrounding it, it can make a decision on what the accuracy level and what the word actually should be, right? So again, leveraging a lot of the data to make sure that we've captured the correct contextual ones. And then as we go through the various steps, right, there's that continuous machine learning that we're looking at, and what we're going to do, right, as we get the data, as we learn a little bit more, there's the continuous ML models that we would be looking at to be able to improve the process to capture that data for you. And what do we do with that data? We put them all back into our content management system, right? So that is a platform that is enabled. It is analytics ready. We can apply machine learning models against it. So again, like I said before, there are the digital, PDFs. How useful are they? What they're useful is that content, right? So you might have analytics that you need to apply now. That's great. That's kind of a one-time event, right? So, but by putting things into Canopy, into our application, you also can look at applying machine learning models against it later, right? So maybe there is a different scenario, a different market change, a different environmental change that we need to focus on. And so how do we apply models against the data that's already there? And so, one of the things is how do we keep the analytics? And then also how do we apply the retention, right? So, understanding of the context data allows us to help us with decision making. And having everything in Canopy into a content management system also allows you to focus on applying automated retention schedule, right? What is information that needs to be kept, right? The must-haves, the things that you cannot delete, and removing the things, because they are classified. What are things that are just nice to have? Maybe we don't need, maybe we need them for a period, but that's where the advanced classification allows you to filter a lot of that stuff, right? So if you look at the original, the data growing 4 to 6 times, how do you manage that mountain of information, and how do you ensure you keep it in a useful manner so that you can actually parse a lot of the data from it? And so that's a little bit about Ripcord. You can reach, get to our website. There are loan original services that are outlined on our website, as well as how, we're working with MUFG. So that is a major bank in Japan, on how we are managing their, applications and their documentation. And thank you for dealing with us during this challenging time and the challenging technology changes that we're looking at.
Thank you so much, Joni. I think you actually covered a couple of questions that were already posted. If any other folks have questions, please feel free to take a moment to post those in the chat on GoToWebinar. We'll hang out for a moment or two while we're doing that, but while we're waiting, just want to say thank you again for joining us today. Thank you to Joni, Corinne, and the Ripcord team. Truly appreciate your partnership. If you have any questions about Ripcord and our current Typhone customer, please reach out to your account manager or our sales team, and we'll be happy to help. If you're not a current Typhone customer, please feel free to reach out to Joni and the Ripcord team directly. Her contact info is provided in the webinar description. This webinar will be hosted as a recording on the Typhone website that you can access at any time. Again, thank you, Joni, and let's see, do we have any questions at this point? Doesn't look like it. So with that, feel free to reach out if you do have any questions that come up. Thank you, everyone, and hope you all have a great day.
Thank you all.
Take care.